with David Buchanan, the Chief Executive of the Australian Steel Association. David, many thanks for your time today. Let's just start with how much steel does Australia actually export to the United States on an annual basis?
Ross, good afternoon. Thanks for having me today. Fundamentally, small amounts, really 250 to 300,000 tonne a year. So it's quite small in the scheme of exports in steel, certainly globally.
Okay, so just explain that steel of 250,000 tonnes. Whose steel makes it, who makes it, and who buys it?
Yes, sir. So made by BlueScope Steel in Port Kembla and utilised by BlueScope Steel in the USA. So fundamentally, it's a raw material product used by BlueScope for their own use in the USA steel plants. And that is the only major import or export, that's going to the USA.
All right, so it's not a big amount for starters, and BlueScope also manufactures in the United States. So I want to get to one other thing, because your organisation represents all of the smelters here in Australia, or the steelworks in Australia, plus on top of that the fabricators, plus steel importers. The Prime Minister, when they were rescuing the Whyalla Steelworks, putting it into administration and then saying they would have a rescue plan, also did not discount the prospect of putting tariffs on Chinese imports of steel to protect Whyalla. So I'm kind of confused. On one hand, we're doing nothing about the United States. On the other hand, maybe there's tariffs on Chinese steel imports.
Good question, Ross. Look, fundamentally, Australia's protected by the Anti-Dumping Commission and the anti-dumping policies and procedures that are governed by the World Trade Organization, WTO. So we already have a large number of dumping cases against China and other countries to protect the local industry. And I don't think additional tariffs are going to be the way to go in this case.
All right, because then you might get into a tit-for-tat thing. It might be that tariffs come back on Australian wine or on lobsters, for goodness sakes. But one other thing, I was speaking with a major construction, or the boss of a major construction company last night. He was telling me that the steel that they're now using is coming from Vietnam, and that steel is 30% cheaper than what they can source steel in Australia. Isn't that one of the fundamental problems for Australia's steel industry?
Yes, Ross. Look, that's something we've been looking closely with the other industry organisation, the Australian Steel Institute, as well. It's a deeply concerning issue for the entire industry. It will cause issues moving forward into the future, where steel intensity could indeed drop in Australia, both locally made product and imported products through distribution channels who have invested money in processing machinery, etc. So it is a big concern. The question is how to resolve that, as you said, without getting in a tit-for-tat tariff war and I guess causing more issues than we see already currently.
Okay, so again, when the government stepped in at Whyalla, it was all about the fact that steelmaking is an important sovereign risk for Australia, that we need to make steel here, that we need to have a vibrant steel industry so that we are self-reliant. But the reality is now, if imports are cheaper than what's being made here locally, that really is a bit of a handbrake on the viability of future smelters, I would have thought.
Look, I think, Ross, there's a couple of issues at play. Energy costs, obviously, is one issue. Cost of labour, obviously, in comparing to Asia and other regions, is a big challenge for the industry. However, I think we're seeing a number of steel mills now progressing through feasibility stages in Brisbane and also in WA. So that there is some light at the end of the tunnel, but certainly there's some big challenges heading forwards, as you mentioned, for Whyalla itself and the production over there. But steel is a sovereign capability. It's definitely required. We want to see a strong steel industry domestically producing steel. Unfortunately, over the last 5, 10, 15 years, we've reduced the number of products and the types of products we produce here. But having said that, we certainly want to see a vibrant and strong steel industry here in Australia.
Because I'm just thinking about this. That chief executive I was talking to last night about the 30% cheaper steel from Vietnam, the one thing that might be actually saving jobs, investment in the Australian steel industry right now is the Australian dollar sitting at 62 or 63 US cents. That effectively is protecting the Australian steel industry, isn't it?
Yeah, that's correct, Ross. So obviously, steel is traded in US dollars, and the US dollar Aussie dollar exchange rate is a big factor. As I mentioned earlier, anti-dumping is certainly evident for a number of countries to stop imports of steel products as well. So we do have a quite well-protected market. But having said that, I guess we are now facing quite a new global challenge with what's happening, the rate of change. And I think the challenge moving forwards is how to compete on that level playing field will be no doubt a challenge for the whole industry.
And indeed a challenge for government as well. David Buchanan is the Chief Executive of the Australian Steel Association. And David, many thanks for your time on the program today.